All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. How was your community group time? Not long enough. You know, we get that a lot. The community group time it's valuable time. But we felt that, it was enough to be able to get us talking. One of the things that Hannah and I will be doing, we're going to do some Q&A right now. So what are some questions that came up? So while you're thinking about some questions, Hannah and I, based on how the rest of this goes, we will be sitting down to talk and record a video, and we will be releasing it in July. And at least for Awake and Alive, if you're joining us in the online community group, we will be using that video at some point in July as part of the follow-up. So if you really enjoy talking about this, we'll be doing a couple of short videos that'll be kind of teaching, and it probably comes out of some of this. And then we'll be talking about that. So if you like the community group time, highly recommend that you join us for the online. So with that being said, Tyler's got the microphone. He's going to be our runner so that Sammy can focus on sound. Were there some questions that came up as you guys were talking, or something that you have that you wanted to ask Hannah? I was gonna. Yeah. Do you have one? So I need you to come here so that they can hear it online.
It's good, Tyler. Okay, I was gonna say, who's your favorite character from the Chronicles of Narnia? Since you were talking about it earlier.
Oof, that is hard to answer. I mean, I'm a big fan of Shasta because I named my dog after Shasta. But I feel like when I first read them, probably like Peter or Prince Caspian. I'd have to reread them to fully decide that again. There's so many good ones. It was a good question. Now I'm going to reread them. I'm convinced.
Way to go.
Yeah, it's good.
And the movies won't do. The books are still way better. All right.
Sure. So my question is, we were talking about how we get past the disappointment and kind of get to having God help us like exceed those expectations, or and what are some things we can do before that expectations are exceeded? Is there anything along the way that we can do to prepare ourselves for this happening?
Yeah, I feel like there's a number of things. I really like the concept in the Old Testament of the Ebenezer, which is a stone that they raise to see that God has gotten us this far, so he'll continue to get us through the future. And I think sometimes that can be hard, but for me, I see God's really helped me through all these hard things in my life. And even before this whole breaking off an engagement and things like that, it's like God's helped me through sicknesses and different things like that. And if he's gotten me through that, he can continue to get me through whatever I'm facing right now. So sometimes it's looking at your own past or other people's past that I think is really helpful. But then I think for me, just thinking about like, what are my specific fears within my disappointment right now, and can you write out what each of those fears are, and then maybe find a Bible passage of why isn't this fear true? So with me, it would have been, I broke off the engagement. I feel like no one cares about me. I feel like I don't matter. But then, there's Bible passages that are like, surely I'm with you always, and God knows the number of hairs on my head. So there's things like that where you can just combat whatever fears or insecurities are in you by opening up the Bible and just mapping it to, here's what I feel is true, but this is what is actually true. And I think the more that I've done that in my life, my brain starts to do it a little bit faster than me suffering for days, weeks, and months in these negative things. And then those connections are right there of, okay, I feel alone, or I feel like there's no plan for me. Nope, God says this. Okay, I'm fine. And just continuing to map that. I think that's been really helpful in my life.
You just said something that's really interesting. So it's paying attention to fear. Mm-hmm. I've kind of maintained the idea that fear is a confession, which is kind of what I think you just said.
Yeah.
That's hard to do. How long did it take you, or what were some things that were happening in your faith life that gave you that vision to be able to look at fear that way? That's almost say it's supernatural. That's a faith thing to see it that way.
Yeah, I think the thing that opened my eyes to it was going to a 10th Avenue North concert. And
oh, really?
the lead singer said that every fear we have is based off a lie we believe. So we can go back and see what is the lie I'm believing. And that's why I have that fear. So I think it started there, but then having small group at my church and being able to just talk about fear very openly and other people sharing what their fears are or the things that they'd been through and seeing I'm not alone in this. This is pretty common to the human existence, even though sometimes it feels very lonely. And getting insight of, okay, you've been through this. What did you do? Things like that really helped.
Getting my phone out just to make sure, so if our online folks have any questions that they have a chance to be able to get into. I'm not sure if we were going to put them up online. That's right. We were going to just let you see that there are other people that are joining us and kind of merge the two together.
They're in the desert. You just can't see them.
Yeah, they're in the desert. There we go.
Yeah,
we're just seeing ourselves. Well, yeah. Well, yeah. I think you can. Can you do grid view on that? I think you can do a grid view. In the upper right. Yeah. Somebody will help you with that. Some other younger person, younger than us, will fix it. Oh, Jill has to do it? Yeah. All right. Well, somebody can step into Dave's office and help her with that. What's the next question? There in the middle.
You mentioned something about your small group, and I was just wondering, between the steps of, what were the steps now? Like your disappointments leading you to realize, like, what are you placing your identity in? Mm-hmm. And then shifting that to my identity is loved by God. Did you have, like, special mentors? Like, how much did, like, your faith community play a role in that?
Yeah, so much. I think that idea first, I understood it, I guess, when I listened to a sermon, and that's exactly what the sermon was on identity, and that was so huge for me, and it's like, I've been Christian my whole life, but I've never really understood this concept in a way that applied so much to my life. So I think I started there, and then actually in our small group talking about the sermon, it was very direct of what do you put your identity in, and what shouldn't you be putting your identity in, and seeing that I'm not just going through this personally, but every single person in this group is going through the same thing, but very different things, sometimes the same things. That was really helpful, and we did some things where you just draw a name out of a hat, and you'd go with that person, and you'd be like, this is what I'm struggling with, that's what you're struggling with, okay, let's try to help each other and encourage each other in that. And I think that helped a lot, because for me it was, I'm really struggling with being single, and then I could have people who were either single or who had been in a stage like that or were past that, never even been in it, and they could encourage me of, okay, like, we see what's going on in your life, but we know what's true, and we're going to help you through this because we know the truth that God has you here for a reason, and it's going to be good, even if you don't know what it is.
There's that saying, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. What did 19-year-old Hannah not know that
what did she know?
2023 That's humility. So, okay, but what did 19-year-old Hannah, if there was two things that come to your mind that 19-year-old Hannah thought she knew but didn't know, mm-hmm. What are two that pop to the top of your head?
Yeah, I think the first one was very much like what I talked about. I think I had the perfect plan of how my life was going to go. And I was very fortunate because up until that point in my life, not many things had gone wrong. It's like, some friends or family have experienced bad things, but I've never really not gotten the thing that I've worked for or things like that. So I think young me was like, yeah, it's going to be great. Everything is going to happen exactly how I expect. Where me now goes, it's not going to happen how I expect, but it's so much better to have God be the author of my life than myself, because myself is like, here's what I'd have, and then again, God's like, no, this is what I have, and it's so much better. So I'd rather just like now I'm way more just sit back, and where God leads me, I will go. Sometimes that's clear, sometimes that's really murky, but it's just like, it's fine no matter what happens in life. I know I went into electrical engineering, and I'm like, I'm going to have this career, and now it's like, no, and that's fine. It's way better. So I think that was one of the big things. And then I think maybe Christian community. Like, I did grow up in Christian grade school, Christian high school, and things like that. I went to MSOE, so that wasn't Christian, but it was pretty conservative. But I think finding Christian community and being vulnerable with them is a whole nother step of community, because you can have friends, you can kind of tell them what's going on in your life, but actually opening up and saying, here's my struggles, here's the sins I'm dealing with, here's what I'm actually going, and not just that fake version of myself. I saw so much of encouragement and building up in myself through that, and like even my book is out because of a married couple just really encouraging me in all of my struggles and singleness. It wouldn't be what it is without them, without me being vulnerable, and them in turn being vulnerable and just helping me through that. So I think being vulnerable is not a weakness, it's a huge strength, and there's so much good that can come out of that.
We'll go to a question that's here. There's a follow-up if nobody asks a question there, but other questions that you guys have. Jenna.
Hello.
I know this is going to be good. Pay attention.
Okay, I'll go.
Let's see. So you talk about it a little bit in the book, but so we talk about like the future, like God meeting your expectations and like knowing that's coming and being sure in God's love and all that goodness, but talking about like the here and now purpose. And you talk about this in your book, like a critique single people get. I get this all the time is, oh, you're single, you have so much time to like do all stuff. But like thinking about that seriously, do you feel like in your time of singleness, did you find opportunities to do more stuff, have projects to meet people that maybe you wouldn't have had? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've been married for like 7-8 months now, so I have some experience, but not a ton. I feel like for me, like I had a full-time job and I traveled a lot for work, but I could come home every night and I didn't have responsibilities to another person to hang out or do anything like that. So I wrote my book every night when I came home from work. Sometimes I'd spend entire Saturdays, Sundays just writing my book. And now that I'm in a relationship, my husband's very nice, so he definitely let me do that, but I would feel bad doing that. So I think I had some of that time because it was right when I graduated from college, and I decided that this is a priority I'm going to make out of my life. But I feel like there's lots of other things where you might graduate from college and you might need to continue your education while you're working, and you know, it can be super, super busy no matter where you are in life. I feel like things never really slow down. It's just different seasons dealing with different things. So I think as a single, I could really prioritize that I have this dream and I'm going to pursue it, and I feel like I have more time right now to try to pursue it, and if it fails, then whatever, I spent time digging into this thing and that's okay. Where right now, maybe I feel a little bit more that I need to balance, like I have relationships, I need to keep these things going. I can't just be a complete mess because someone else lives at a house now, like things like that I need to balance. But I think in any season, if God's giving you a dream to work on something, then he's gonna help open some doors, whether it's time or resources or anything like that to make it happen. And sometimes it's just, can I do this for 10 minutes a day and that's it, but you can slowly build to something? Or yeah, can I take a whole day to do it? It can really change. But I think no matter what, there's still opportunities to do it. It just looks different.
Another question from you guys, something that's on your mind. In the back. We'll go with Zach and then we'll come to Brandon. And
for someone who doesn't know what they might want to do in the next day today or the next month or the next year, whatever the case may be, do you have any advice that you would give someone in day-by-day comfort? Just, I don't know where I'm going. What comfort can I find each day? Because it can be hard.
Yeah, are you asking more in terms of like, what comfort can I have not doing anything, or like, how do I figure out what I want to do and find comfort in that, I guess?
Could be both.
Okay.
Whichever you think you can
Okay.
speak
how
better
much
to.
time do we have?
Yeah, it's like, okay. I think like the comfort that I've always had, because sometimes I want to go on to something, but I don't know what it is that God loves me so much and he has me here for a reason, and a lot of times things can seem mundane. I know I've been in jobs where it's just like my patent job, where it's like I am just writing patents over and over and over and everything seems the same, and why am I doing this? But God's still there in that, and he was letting me be there for a reason. And it's not until later, again, that I figured out some of those things. So like doing a mundane job, I built relationships that are lasting me now and just so much more incredible than what I expected out of, oh, here's my coworker who sits next to me. It's like, here's my coworker who, we're going and traveling together and having all these conversations and all these great things. I did not expect that. So I think God can do a lot out of the mundane. And as we look through scripture, there's so much of that too, where he's not using the like big flashy thing. He's always just using like the person who's struggling and not doing a lot. So that's really encouraging. And then I think if you're somewhere and you're like, I want to do something, but I don't know what it is. One of the things that I've always heard is think about what breaks your heart and what you can do about that. So like for me, human trafficking is like insane that it exists. And it's like, that breaks my heart. What can I do about that? And for a long time, it's like, I don't know what I want to do, but I can, try to raise money or try to do things or get involved in that in certain ways, because that's something that speaks to me uniquely as an individual. And all of us are different, so we have different things that break our hearts. And I think following that, even if you don't know exactly what it means, is going to give you a lot of purpose and see, like, I can do this and I can use, the talents God gave me and the love he gave me to do something and try to make an impact in the world. So that one's been big for me.
Question here, and then I'm going to ask 2 follow-up questions, and then we're going to take a quick break to reset for Pastor Nate's devotion, our Vespers time together.
All right. My question is, what would your tips be for someone who is single and would want to have a relationship or be married like you are?
Yes. I sometimes do a presentation that's specifically on singleness. I made it more broad this time, but I have like an entire slide of like 20 things. So I'm like, what are all the things on there? My book summarizes this really well. So I think some of the first things are really dealing with internally what's going on inside that's making singleness seem like a bad thing. So for me, it was loneliness. It was maybe thinking that I'd done something wrong. It was baggage, thinking like all these bad things happened in the past, so that's gonna happen in the future if I do it again. Identity, all obviously thinking that, something's wrong with me. So I think the first step is really looking at all those bad things and thinking like, why am I thinking that way? Because if I trust God and I understand God, then none of those things are true. So first of all, I had to work inside of me and be like, I've got some things that are wrong in my heart. And then once I kind of worked through those, then I looked to the story of Joseph, and he was in terrible situation after terrible situation he did not want to be in, I'm sure. He was sold into slavery, and then he was in prison for a long time. And no matter where he was, instead of just being upset, he was working really hard and he was letting his light shine. So that really opened up my eyes to the fact that no, I would not have chosen to be single, but I'm here, and God has me here for a reason, just like he did for Joseph. So I can either choose to be upset about it, or I can choose to try to make the most out of this season of my life, no matter how long it lasts. So that encouraged me to get to like, okay, I'm fine here, and then to get to like, yeah, I'm gonna thrive here. I think it's really important to focus on community and having those friendships and people around you who make you feel like you're not alone. So they're not people who are constantly asking you about your dating life and things like that. They're people who are asking you, what are your dreams? What are you excited about? What are you pursuing? That kind of stuff. So having community, really focusing on your relationship with God. And then I think about the question, what would my life need to look like? So it wouldn't matter if I'm single or if I'm in a relationship. And start pursuing that dream of a life. Because for me, I was like, if I'm writing, I'm excited if I'm in a relationship, but I'm also excited if I'm single. It doesn't really matter because I'm doing this thing that God gave me the talents for, and that makes me feel so excited and so happy for what's going on in my life that a relationship status doesn't matter. So I think starting to think about that and see like, what maybe am I holding off because I think life begins at marriage or with a relationship that I could be doing right now. Yes. Yes.
We've got a question that's going to come online. We're going to try this and see. So we're going to, it'll be about a 10-second delay. We're going to put these guys up, and hopefully Jill will be able to do the stop share, and then she will come up on the screen, and then she'll be able to ask the question from the group. That's my hope.
Okay, we'll just
And
slowly.
exactly. So we'll see if it happens. But did you unmute? Unmute him? Okay, cool. All right. So Jill, your group's question. Exactly. So we'll see if it happens. But did you unmute him? Unmute him? Okay, cool. All right. So Jill, your group's question.
All right, I think I'm here. Can you hear me?
We'll see if it happens. But did you unmute? Unmute him? Okay, cool. All right. So Jill, your group's question.
All right, I think I'm here. Can you hear me?
We'll see if it happens. But did you unmute?
Cover up the mics.
So Jill.
Awesome. So Micah has a question. So I'm going to have Micah unmute and ask his question.
Hey guys, Hannah, you mentioned that you traveled a lot for Rockwell, and what advice would you have for someone who is going to be traveling and is looking to get into a relationship? You traveled a lot for Rockwell, and
You can mute that. Yep.
Yeah, someone who's traveling a lot and wants to be in a relationship, yeah, that is a tricky one. I think it helps a lot to travel because then you can kind of get away from your normal and experience all this different stuff of like other people live in such crazy different cultures and learn from that a lot. I think very practically, if you're traveling a lot and trying to get in a relationship, then it's just being honest with people as you're dating of like, I'm only here for this period of time and we'll see. I know me, for example, I met my husband and we were gonna go on a date, but I was traveling so much that it was like, okay, I'll see you in a couple weeks and then we'll see if this thing works or not. And I promise I'm not putting you off. It's literally that I have like work travel and some other things. So I think, yeah, being honest about it. And then for me, it's been nice that as I've gotten married, I travel a lot less because I switched to a full-time author. So that's been convenient. But yeah, it can definitely be tricky. But it's also nice because as you're dating, you have all these cool stories of traveling that you can talk about. So adds a fun thing, I think.
That's an interesting way to think about it too. I mean, it's so that connection is very much verbal. It's the practice of listening, you know. And in our day and age, it's, you know, we practice consuming, but we don't necessarily practice listening. So I can listen to Hannah here, or I can listen to Hannah here. And so yeah, that's a good point. Travel does give you stories, and stories allows you to listen.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you one question. Maybe there'll be a follow-up, and then we're going to take a break. And by the way, if you have other questions, I would love for you to email us. We will have a follow-up email for all of you who registered, so that you can send them to us. We'll be looking for some feedback on how the event went. You know, what went well, how can we improve this, and do you have suggestions on speakers for next summer? But think about questions. There's two questions that I have that I'm curious about. One is, it's a safety question. You know, vulnerability is what we're all really, and intimacy is what we're all desiring. And when we're 19, we actually don't know ourselves very well. As you get older, you start to fail forward and you start to learn more about yourself. And if there's some humility and honesty and the understanding that God will continue to love me even as I make a mess of things, you learn some things. But in our desire for vulnerability and intimacy, especially when that 19-year-old Hannah is, you had some people who were helpful to you. What might you consider a helpful guideline for, especially for people who don't have that right now? Because you can be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
What is an authentic, what does a safe place look like for a young adult?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, I didn't feel that way until I had a small group Bible study where it was very much set up that way. And I think the same rules for that Bible study really apply to any situation where you want to share something. So some of the rules are, you know, it's confidential. It does not leave the person that you're talking to or, you know, get outside in any way. And I think that someone listens fully and they're not trying to change you or judge you. They're trying to understand you is a big piece of it. So those were kind of some of the rules that we had on our group. We had a lot more rules as well. But I think in any interaction, if you're trying to figure out if you should share or not, then those are good things to consider. Like, does this person gossip a lot, or are they going to keep this between the two of us? And are they going to judge me, or do they care about me and they're going to listen and they're going to understand and they're going to encourage me no matter what I tell them? I know that can be really hard, but I think one of the things that helped me was thinking about the fact that everything I have is God's. So my story is God's too. So that's what really helped me, because if you would talk to me, 10 years ago when all this was happening, it's like, I'm not going to write in a book these horrible things that happened to me. I'm not going to go on stage and talk about it. But then I realized, God let me have those experiences too. So why not try to turn them into something good? And the more I talked to people, I was fortunate enough to see that me sharing my story, other people could relate, and then they could tell me their story. And then we had this mutual, really deep friendship immediately. And I've seen that with my own story of singleness, but I've seen it across the board with different, struggles with sin or with different life experiences, different traumas, things like that. So I know it's scary, but God will definitely help you and help you find the right people. And then, you can have that community that you're so close to because they really get it.
I'm going to ask this question. I was debating about in my head whether or not we save this one, but I think it's important with this group. You came to a crossroads. And for a lot of us, when we come to a crossroads of what I want and a sense that there's something not right, we on our Zoom group, we were talking about just that idea, and Mike had shared that he had an accident in Green Bay. He had broke his arm, but nobody knew it was broke. They thought it was sprained, so he went a week or two without having it looked at, and it was broken, right?
Yeah.
So, you generally, we tend to say, well, that kind of hurts, but maybe it'll get better,
Yes.
right? And so we do this. Anybody else do this in life? Like, our relationships, like, I sense like something's not right, but maybe it'll just get better, and we don't actually do it. Something in you had every opportunity to just ignore and get married.
Mm-hmm.
What gave you the courage to push on the pain and keep pushing until there was a resolution? What happened there?
Yeah, I think, I knew something wasn't right, and I talked to especially my parents and close friends, and they were very concerned. They would not tell me what to do, but they were like, we're here for you. And I had one really kind friend who's just like, you don't have to deal with this. For me, it was someone who was in a very healthy relationship telling me that, as she saw everything that was going on with me, that does not have to be your normal. And I think I wanted to take this hard relationship and turn it into something that was good and something that was normal. And my goal was to get there, but the more that it wasn't getting there and there's this gap, the more I started kind of waking up and saying, if it's like this now, what is it going to be in 10, 20, 30 years? So it was hard for me, and I wanted to cling on to it so much because it's like, this is my idea of what is supposed to happen, and I'm going to make it happen. God, I don't care, is kind of my attitude that I had going into it. But I just prayed so much because my hard thing was that if I break up this relationship, I feel like I'm giving up on the person. That's what I had to struggle with a lot. So I did a lot of counseling at the time, and my counselor was like, no, you praying for someone is just as powerful. It's more powerful than anything you can do. So just because you're ending a relationship doesn't mean you're giving up on that person, and you also can't just force them to live the way you want. Everything is their choice. So that was really hard, but then ultimately the conversation of this isn't a sin, I can't do anything about that. I can't fight that anymore. So I prayed so much to God of make clear what I'm supposed to do, make clear what I'm supposed to do while trying to cling to that thing. And then God really made it clear what I was supposed to do. Maybe a little too clear for me. Yeah. That led me to that, and I was devastated, but obviously it was all for good.
Can you guys thank Hannah for sharing the night with us? We're going to take about a 5-minute break. if you've got to take off, I hope that you guys can stick around to join us for a little bit of our Vespers and worship. And Pastor Nate, I'm looking forward to his devotion here to really, again, this is good information. It's awesome. And you put Jesus into it. But now as a group, let's grow closer to Jesus so that vulnerability, intimacy, the trusted relationships might be just a bit more trusted. So stick around for that. 2 things I want you to know about. Number 1, maybe 3. Hannah's book is in the back, and so before you leave, she's going to be here after devotions to be able to hang out and talk, sign books, and things like that.
Yes.
We have shirts that are in the back. If you like the I'm Alive shirt, the shirts that are there are $25, and we have most of the sizes that are there, so if you'd like to grab one, we can take care of that. And then lastly, if you saw the email, we have Awaken Alive 2024 on the calendar.
Nice.
All right, so we got one person dancing. That's good news. And now you're going to get up out of your seat and dance. It is going to be in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Ooh. There we go. So for those of you who are online, we're hoping that you're willing to drive, come and join us in Wisconsin. Some of us have been driving over to Minnesota the last couple of years. So, but we're also going to be live streaming the Friday night in this manner, so that if you can't come physically and join us, you can be part of the community for that Friday night. But tickets are on a this is the lowest price that they go, $55, which doesn't really even pay for feeding you guys for the conference part of things. But it's $55 through June. And then from there, it will jump to $79, and then it will jump to $99 at November, and end of November. There are discounts for groups as well, but this $55 one is the cheapest that you can. So if you're able to, commit to coming January 12th through the 14th. It'll be at Marriott West, a really nice space for us to use. We'll be announcing speakers by the end of the summer. And so just put it on your calendar, take one of the things with you, and get registered sooner. Take your 5-minute break, stretch out. Band is going to come up and get ready to go, and then we'll be back here in just a little bit.
Sounds good.